This is Unit 7, Circles. Preview Video 7.1, Circle Parts and Angles. Take a moment, sit tall. Ready? Inhale. Hold breath. And birthday candle. Take a look at page 1 in your preview video notes. Make sure you get your date, time, and location. For the next month, we're going to be talking about circles. Circles are nearly a bottomless subject. There's lots of vocabulary associated with circles. I'd like you to take a moment and read each of these out loud. We're going to go over the basic parts of a circle. Many of these you've probably seen before. We're just going to recap them. So when I say circle, it means simply the physical circle itself. We name circles by their centers. So for example, if the exact center of this circle is Q, I would name it like this. I would say my symbol for circle is a little circle with a dot. We put a dot there so we don't mix it up with 0 or O, and I would call that circle Q. A radius is like a spoke in a wheel, center to the circle's edge. A diameter goes all the way across 2 radii, endpoints on the circle. That's a diameter. A chord is any segment with endpoints on the circle. So a diameter is a chord. It's the longest chord in a circle. This tangent has nothing to do with SOHCAHTOA tangent, sine, cosine tangent. This tangent means to touch. If I have a segment or a line that touches a circle at one point exactly, that is a tangent. Point of tangency would be the point where the line touches the circle. A secant is a segment or a line that starts on the outside of a circle and either goes all the way through at 2 points. That's a secant. Or starts on the outside and goes through and ends on the far side. Either way, it intersects the circle at 2 points starting from the outside. That's a secant. Take a moment on this page and name each one of these terminologies. Then correct your work. Pause the video. Okay, students, I expect you to correct your work. So if you get everything correct, star, smiley, something really big like that. If you miss something, I expect some sort of little note. What are you going to remember? So it's a learning experience. So in this, we would name this circle with a dot, circle A. A radius would be like A to F or A to H. And it's a segment. A diameter would be H to F. F to H, same thing. A chord would be from point C to D or D to C. tangent line would be this line touching from the outside. So we could call that line BH or BJ or JB. Point of tangency, of course, would just be H, point H. A secant would be this line BD. Notice it has to be a line because it's coming from the outside. So make note of what you did correct and what you need to remember. Basic terminology. This illustrates an intersection of circles. From the outside, and this would be an intersection from the inside. So both of those are intersection. Physically trace the red triangle. Trace it, please. Or, excuse me, circle. Physically trace the blue. Notice the red and the blue have the exact same center. We would call these concentric circles. Con means with, centric, center, with the same center. Trace that radii, please. Notice the radii are congruent. This is pretty easy to understand. If you have congruent radii in a circle, or circles, plural, then you have congruent circles. Congruent radii, congruent circles. So that's circle parts. Now we're going to focus on arcs and angles. Arcs and angles. Trace that, please. Just trace it. Trace it again. So that is a piece of the circle. That's called an arc. And a minor arc is an arc less than 180 degrees. And the symbol for that would be BC with a little arc symbol above it. Trace that way, please, the long way around. Trace it again. So a piece of a circle which is more than 180 is called a major arc. And when you name major arcs, because it's the long way around, you must use 3 letters. So CDB. I could have gone the other way around as well, BDC. But I have to use 3 letters. Trace this, please. Notice the diameter there going through the center, so that makes this a semicircle. Semicircle, of course, equals 180. Semi means half. And you have to use 3 letters for a semicircle, so EHG. Now, if I wanted to, so EHG is the physical circle. If I want to say it measures 180 degrees, I would do this. Measure of arc, EHG, equals 180. I'd like you to shade this in. Shade it. Shade it in. Notice this angle is connected to the center. That's called a central angle. It's an angle whose vertex is on the center. It's called a central angle. You might recognize it as what we would call a pizza slice angle. And that would be angle BAC. That's called a central angle because its vertex, A, is the center of the circle. Now that central angle has a very simple property. Very important property. Measure of a central angle to its arc the same. Measure of a central angle to its arc the same. Sing it with me. Measure of a central angle to its arc the same. Beginning of a song, yes. So whatever the central angle is, let's say that angle is 60 degrees, the measure of the arc, degree curvature, is also the same, 60 degrees. Which leads us to these real simple. That if you have congruent central angles, you have congruent arcs. And just like segments, you can add smaller segments to get bigger ones. You can add smaller arcs to get bigger ones. So if you have adjacent arcs, then you can add them up. Give you an example here. Let's say you had the measure of arc DA. And you add it to the measure of the arc AE. Then that's going to equal the measure of this arc DAE. Ta-da! Little arc adds up to big arc. Very difficult, I know. Let's do a couple problems together based on these concepts. Put your finger right where that red dot is. I really want you to read out loud, folks. Force yourself to read out loud. Put your finger there. Following the red dot, read out loud with me, lips moving. Ready? Read. In the diagram below, EB is a diameter, and AF, AD, and AC are all radii. The measure of angle, FAB is 60. Measure of angle, BAC is 55. Find all possible arc and angle measures. Show your work on the diagram. Whenever you have a diameter, the very first thing I'd like you to spot is first just trace that diameter. Then I'd like you to stretch it out and sweep the 180. Also, I'd like you to watch out for radii. Just trace them. AF, AC, AD are all radii. Measure of angle FAB, that's a central angle. F, AB is 60. BAC, BAC is 55. Find all possible arcs and angles. Okay, you ready? This is going to be super easy. We're going to go kind of quick. Measure of a central angle to its arc the same. So if the central angle is 60, the arc is 60. Central angle 52, arc 52. If this is 90 degrees, central angle, this arc is 90 degrees. If that's 180, physically trace this, and this is 60, then you see here 180 minus 60, that's 120 degrees, which makes this 120 degrees. Watch out for that 180. It's 180 here as well. Which makes this angle right here 38. And if that angle is 38, then the arc is 38. Yes, I want you to measure and label both the arc and the angle, even though they're the same measure. Always write down both. See how easy that is? Now we're going to work on major arcs. Stretch out diameters, RU. Trace, stretch, sweep, 180. And SV. Find the following arcs. Let's keep in mind that's 180. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to follow this green arc, trace this. This is 130. That means from here to here is 50. What makes this 50? I'd like you to physically connect RU, SV. Do it again. Trace, RU, SV. One more time. RU, SV. Do you see those are vertical angles? So if that's 50, that's 50, that's 50. That's 130. Notice I'm just automatically finding all arcs and angles. Looking at the yellow, 50 and 86. Is 136. You take that away from 180 and you get 44, which means this is 44. Okay, and this is 86. Now you have all the arcs and angles. Now we're going to go for what we're being asked for. We are being asked to find angle UQV. UQV. Lo and behold, we already have it. Now, major arcs, very important you follow that exact letter order, R, T, V. And you're going along the edge of the circle. R, through T, all the way to V. Has to go in that exact order around the edge of the circle. Trace it again. You're being asked to find that measure. Right there's 180 plus 50. And RTV is 230 degrees. VRT, now same three letters, but it's actually a different arc. You must follow that order, VRT. So V through R, ending at T, VRT. And if you look carefully, that's going to be 180 plus 86. Now those are major arcs. 3 letters. Order does matter. Stretch out the diameters KH and JG. Trace both halves of the circle. Solve for X and then find all possible arcs and angles. Every time you get a diameter, trace it. Stretch it out, sweep the 180. Trace it, stretch it out, sweep the 180. We're going to solve for X and all possible angles. Let's start with our central angle. Physically trace the 100, physically trace it. Measure of a central angle to its arc the same. I'd like you to trace KH, JG. Do it again. KH, JG. One more time. Trace, pencil on your paper, JH, JG. Can you feel that? That, my friends, is a vertical angle, which makes this 100, which makes this arc right here 100, which if you keep tracing from here to here because of the 180, that makes this 80, that 80, vertical angles again, 80, 80. Look at all that information you're given. Let's go ahead and solve for x. Now we know that the arcs add up to 9x plus 5 plus 10x equals 100. Collect like terms. And x equals 5. Let's actually check that. 9 times 5, that makes that 45. 10 times 5 is 50, that makes that 55. 45 and 55 do add up to 100. Check. Look very carefully and ask yourself, just kind of move your finger around. Did you find all the arcs? Did you find all the angles? This page, friends, you're doing on your own. Keep in mind these two sweeps mean those are congruent. Please pause the video. Welcome back. Students, if right now you're just copying, that's not learning. So at this moment, you should have all the arcs and angles and these arcs down here found. And then you're going to correct your work. If you're just copying, that's not a learning experience. It's totally okay to be wrong here, folks, as long as you correct your work. I'm going to move kind of quickly because we're correcting. If this is 106, that is a central angle, also 106. Diameters, trace, step, sweep 180, which makes this 74. That also 74. Vertical angle 74, that's 74. Which means this here is also 106. 106 split in half, 53, 53. Which makes this arc 53, 53. Now, we're asked for specifically 3 major arcs. So F, H, D in this order. F through H, ending at D. F, H, D. If you look very carefully, that's going to be, from here to here is 180 plus 53. So FHD, the blue arc, is 233. HDF, H, starting here, going through D, ending at F. That's 180 and 53. Also 233. Last one, FDH. Start at F, going through D, ending at H. If you notice, it's the same arc, just named differently as the green. So we're going to get the same answer here, which is 233. If you got it correct, giant star smiley. Not correct, write yourself a note about what you're going to remember.